Hi, this is Kate from Generate Magic. So many of us have people in our lives that we would like to change, whether it's an irritating coworker or neighbor, or it's your significant other, or somebody that you would like to be in a relationship with, what they call in the manifestation community an SP. And there's actually an Of Montreal song, and the lyrics go, "If I could Dr. Frankenstein the world, I would change the shit out of you." And it's a very cynical song, but I think it sums up a common sentiment that so many times we just wish we could change the people around us and just have them. I see a lot of titles with like "make your SP conform," and so we feel like if we could just make the people around us conform to our desires and conform to what we wanted and get our children to obey us and to cooperate, then our lives would just be so much easier and everything would just be perfect. And sometimes we come from it with a very quote unquote pure intention, right? Like we want to heal somebody in our lives. And but I think at the core, it all comes from the premise that we're trying to change somebody else in some way, right? It's operating from the premise that this person is somehow broken and somehow needs to be fixed or needs to be healed. And there was an episode of Father Brown, which I think captures this very well. And so in that episode, there's this man, and he's either a psychologist or a psychiatrist. And so he actually kind of gets into the field because he has this son. And when his son was very young, they were in a car accident. And it caused the son to become kind of emotionally stunted. And so even though his son is now a grown man, he still has this very childlike way of behaving. And it's like he was a 5-year-old when the car accident happened. It's like he never matured past the age of 5. So even though he's a physically grown adult now, he still kind of has the disposition and mentality of a young child. And on top of it, it was the father's fault. The father was the one who caused the car accident, and I believe he was drinking when it happened. And so the father feels very guilty, and he's very determined to heal his son. And so he actually goes to these extremes and conducts all sorts of experiments and just goes into these really kind of unhealthy extremes, trying to heal his son and trying to get his son to change into the person that he wants his son to be. And so Father Brown, talks to this man, and so that's why he's called Father Brown, because he's a priest, and so he's able to kind of see this higher perspective. And so he tells the man, he says, look, you have a son who loves you, and you have this son who's very sweet, and he has this childlike innocence and wonder, and sees the world in this very magical way. So instead of looking for what you don't have or looking for what you're lacking, appreciate what you have. And so I think this can very much apply to the people in our lives. And instead of looking for what's wrong with them, for what needs to be changed, appreciate what they have to offer, because everybody has something unique to offer. And the man, going back to the TV episode, the man was looking at his son from one perspective, right? He was looking at his son from the perspective that his son was damaged, that his son was not fit to live in this world. And instead of looking at it through another lens, which is the son had this magic about him and this pure love and the sweetness, and that he should really start to appreciate that. And so we can do the same way with the people in our lives. So everybody has something to appreciate about them, even that curmudgeonly neighbor or even that coworker that's always complaining. And there's always something good that you can find in everybody. And I think the 180 shift is I talked about it before, I think it's a really good exercise for this. And so if, for instance, let's say your children are just not behaving, and you have this belief that that your children are just very disrespectful, that they don't listen to you. And so you can actually look for evidence of all the ways that they have respected you and all the ways that they have listened to you. And it could be in ways, that are a little bit unconventional, right? And like ways that don't immediately come to mind. But it could be, for instance, maybe like when you're telling a story about, let's say you're telling a story about your childhood, and instead of just kind of getting bored or tuning you out or whatever, instead they're really interested and they ask questions. And so that can kind of be one example of how they're showing you respect. And yeah, and just kind of looking for things to appreciate. And I think anybody who's worked with kids, whether, being a parent or a teacher or working with kids in some sort of capacity, knows this, that praise also goes a really long way. And so, so if you're always kind of pointing out the way your kids are frustrating you and disappointing you, then it's just going to bring more of the same behavior. But if you're praising your kids for the things that they are doing right, then they're going to be more inclined to do more of those things. And same thing with your romantic interest or your spouse as well. And I'm sure you probably most of us have experienced this also with a significant other, that the more we complain about their behavior, the more resistant they become. And maybe they even do that behavior more just to provoke us. But instead, if we look for all the things that they are doing right, then they're more likely to do, encourages them, so then they're more likely to do more of that behavior. And so that's kind of like an outward approach, right? An actual way that you can kind of bring this about, in your physical reality. But I think it all just starts with a thought, and it starts with going inwardly. And you can make a list, just make a list of all the things there are to appreciate about this person and all the things that this person is teaching you. Because everybody, no matter how rotten they seem on the surface, everybody has something to teach you. So with that, please let me know your thoughts and how this exercise works for you. I'm really curious to hear how it transpires in your life. And thank you so much for watching, and have a wonderful day.